everyone. So I chose to look at 4 different guidelines for practice for teaching ELLs in relation to teacher talk and classroom routines. The first one I chose to look at is over here, Guideline 4. Guideline 4 says to use scaffolding strategies that maintain a high level of cognitive challenge but lower the language demand by embedding it in context. Some of the example strategies I found were strategy number 9, which said to use familiar words and be consistent. They gave this nice little list of terms that we use today versus their traditional terms. Today's terms were things like writing an extended constructed response, which really is simply an essay. I think that if you have new ELLs in your class, using the term an essay instead of a extended constructed response is fine. You're not expecting any lower of cognitive challenge for them. You're holding them to the same level. You're just using language that's more accessible to them. As your ELLs improve their English, you can start using terms like an extended constructed response, making sure that you are always using that exact same term. When you flip flop between those terms or other terms, I think it starts to get confusing for them. I also liked strategy 32, which said to animate your words. I think by using visuals and facial expressions and motions, we're really helping students to better understand what we're saying. I know that in Spanish, even though I speak it really quite well, when somebody quickly changes topics in the middle of a conversation, I have a hard time following initially unless somebody has like given some sort of context or some sort of gesture or something that shows me that they're veering off on a completely different topic. Just that immediate change is really difficult to follow. And I assume that our ELLs probably really feel similarly, that if we just change topic without having any sort of visual or animation or anything like that, it becomes hard for them to follow. So I think using any visuals, facial expressions, hand gestures would be definitely helpful for them. I also looked at guideline number 6. Guideline number 6 says actively teach learning strategies to give students a menu of ways to process and learn new information. Some of the example strategies I had was the first one wasn't necessarily from the teacher talk and classroom routine section. It was from a bit earlier, but it said to brainstorm learning strategies. And I thought that that was just a really helpful thing that you can incorporate as a routine in your classroom. If you have brainstormed these learning strategies with your students, such as reflecting and writing or teaching or comparing notes or doing doodles, and the students are used to having a menu of these strategies and it just becomes routine that they can reference back to them and use them, I think that'd be really helpful in them processing and learning new information. In our reading, Yatman on page 33 said there are 2 types of newcomers, outgoing versus quiet. I thought this was just a really important thing to note in terms of brainstorming learning strategies, because when there's 2 different kinds of learners, especially a student who's really social and outgoing and a student who's really quiet, they're probably going to want different learning strategies. Different ones are going to work better for different students. The outgoing student might really like doing something like comparing notes with another student, and the quieter student probably would rather reflect in writing. So I think making sure that we're personalizing these learning strategies is important. I also like strategy 41 that said to make active use of review notes. I think when students see that they're not just writing their notes down and then never going back to them, I think that when they see that we actually use them instead of never going back to them, it'll just become a routine for them to constantly flip back in their notes and use them. So as teachers, if we're constantly asking questions that involve students going back to the notes, or we ourselves are showing how we flip back into our own notes to use them, I think that's just providing students with a possible way for them to process and learn new information. I also looked at guideline 10. Guideline 10 says lower learner anxiety in the classroom to create students who are more willing to participate in class, to become risk takers in the learning process, and ultimately to become more successful learners. This is something we just want really for all of our students. Some of the strategies I found for this was strategy 37, which said to display the class plan. I think that this lowers the anxiety for our English language learners because they can mentally prepare for whatever is coming up. Maybe they really feel that they're strong in math and feel no anxiety for when that's coming, but need to mentally prepare themselves for social studies. And maybe when they see social studies as fourth period and they have a snack or a break or something third, well, letting them know what's coming up allows them to better prepare. They'll go back in their notes, maybe ask any questions. It lowers their anxiety because they know what's coming up. I know that I personally have had lots of students who, even if they're not ELLs, really need the schedule. We do a morning meeting, we talk about what's coming up for the day, and my students get to ask questions. And I think when they don't feel like they have questions about something as simple as what we're doing today, they're far more willing and far more willing to participate because they're less anxious. They know what is expected of them and what's happening. I also like page 24, Yatvin suggests an ELL guide for any newcomers. I think that definitely would lower their anxiety because your new English language learners wouldn't be worried about something as simple as finding the bathroom. They know that they don't have to talk to the teacher. They don't need to stop class. They can just whisper to this person who's next to them or point to a picture. They don't even need to use words if they don't have them yet. And that student will know when my friend points to the picture of the restroom, they need to go to the bathroom. Let me show them where it is. And I think we don't want our students to be anxious about something as simple as using the bathroom or finding the nurse's office. So I think that having that simple guide would really lower anxiety. The final strategy I looked at was Guideline 12. Guideline 12 says to provide opportunities for students to experience success in the classroom. Success in learning promotes more success by increasing learner motivation, interest, and self-confidence. One of the first strategies I found was strategy 24, just to slow down. I think that when we slow down our speaking, students, it's much easier for them to understand and they'll feel more successful when they can understand what's happening in class. I think it's really easy for us to speak really fast and not realize how much we're blending words together and leaving out little things that our ELLs really need to hear in our speech. So slowing down definitely would just provide them with the success of being able to understand the most simple and basic success that they need. And then strategy 39, which said to review while you teach. If you're reviewing seemingly simple questions while you're teaching that, the students can see right in front of them what the answer is, those little successes where an ELL can see the words, hear your question, see the answer right in front of them, and that little moment where they can raise their hand and answer will make them feel successful. So I think if we, at least from the time that they start in our classroom, are raising their hand and we're getting them to participate even small in small little bits, I think that definitely would help their self-confidence. And of course, there's more guidelines and more strategies that relate to them, but these were just some of the ones I found. My references are here, the 120 Content Strategies book and the English Only Teachers book. Thank you.